The Witch of Endor is called the Ghost Summoner for a reason. Unlike other witches in history, she wasn't afraid to call forth spirits from beyond the grave. She was the most powerful psychic in the world of the Old Testament, and while her skills were impressive, they also made her very dangerous. King Saul knew this better than anyone. He needed her power, but he also feared it. So when he finally decided to seek out the witch, he only had one question for her: will I be defeated in battle? Let's find out. Hey, everyone, welcome back to another episode. In today's video, we'll be looking at the tale of the terrifying witch who raised ghosts. Make sure to leave a like rating on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more. As always, there will be a timestamp in the description below, so you can skip to the parts that interest you the most. But enough about that, let's begin. Before we get into the story, let me tell you a little bit about the Witch of Endor. Her real name is never revealed in the Bible, but she is known as the Witch of Endor, or simply the Witch. The Bible refers to her as a woman who lived among the Canaanites in the Valley of the Shadow of Death, now known as the Valley of Elah, where Goliath's body was left after his defeat at the hands of David. According to the Bible, the Witch of Endor was a seer and a necromancer, meaning she could communicate with the dead. She used her powers to help people communicate with their loved ones who had passed away. However, she was also able to raise historical figures from the dead in order to gain knowledge or power over them. One of the most famous stories involving the Witch of Endor is the one where King Saul sought out her help to summon the prophet Samuel from the dead. Samuel was a prophet who had played an important role in the history of Israel. He had anointed both Saul and David as kings, and had been a close advisor and mentor to David during his early years as a king. However, Samuel had died several years before the events of the story, and his grave was located in the town of Ramah. Despite the fact that Samuel was buried in a tomb, the Bible says that the witch was still able to summon him up from the dead. The summoning was not easy, however, and the witch had to perform a number of rituals in order to bring Samuel back. She did eventually manage to raise Samuel, and when he appeared before Saul, the king was filled with fear. Samuel did not have any good news for Saul, however, and he told the king that his dynasty would come to an end and that his son would die. This prophecy was the final straw for Saul, and he ended up killing himself rather than face the grim future that had been foretold for him. Now, on to the story. The story of the Witch of Endor begins in the book of 1 Samuel in the Old Testament. At this point in the story, the Israelites are at war with the Philistines, and the Philistines are winning. King Saul has already lost his son, Jonathan, in battle, and he is desperate to find a way to turn the tide of war. According to the biblical account, Saul was advised by his armor-bearer to go and consult the Witch of Endor. The armor-bearer was apparently familiar with the witch's reputation for being able to summon the dead, and he believed that Saul might be able to get the information he needed from one of the prophets who had died. While Saul was hesitant to seek out a pagan witch, he was desperate for any advantage he could get, so he agreed to go and see her. When Saul arrived at the witch's house, he disguised himself and his armor-bearer along with him. They covered up their identities so that the witch would recognize them, and so that Saul would have to deal with the embarrassment of having to admit that he was a king when he asked for help. The disguise worked well, and the witch didn't realize who Saul really was until he had already asked her for what he wanted. When the witch finally realized that she was in the presence of royalty, she was scared, but she agreed to do what Saul had asked her. The witch performed a ritual in order to summon a spirit from beyond the grave. She used a trance and a kind of magic to contact the spirits of the dead. After a short time, the spirit of the person Saul wanted to speak to appeared before him. It was the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Samuel was one of the most important figures in Jewish history, and he had been a mentor and advisor to Saul in the early years of his reign. However, Samuel had died several years before the events of the story, and Saul had been without his guidance ever since. Now, in a moment of desperation, Saul had summoned Samuel back from the dead in order to get some answers. Samuel appeared before Saul, and the two spoke. Samuel did not have any good news for Saul, however, and he told the king that his dynasty would come to an end. Samuel also told Saul that the next day he and his son would die in battle against the Philistines. Saul was devastated by this prophecy, but it was too late to change anything now. The next day, Saul and his son did die in battle, as Samuel had predicted, and the Israelites were defeated by the Philistines. After hearing Samuel's prophecy, Saul was filled with despair. He realized that his time as king was coming to an end and that his son would die in battle. He felt like he had nothing left to live for and decided to take his own life rather than face the grim future that lay ahead of him. The story of Saul and the Witch of Endor is a powerful reminder of the dangers of seeking out forbidden knowledge. Saul was a man who was desperate for answers, but he should have known that some things are best left unknown. By seeking out the Witch of Endor, Saul unleashed a chain of events that led to his own demise and the destruction of his family. The story of Saul and the Witch of Endor is a fascinating one, and it has been the subject of much speculation and debate throughout history. Some believe that the story is simply a myth, while others believe that it is based on actual historical events. If it is based on real events, then it is possible that the Witch of Endor was a real person who possessed the power to summon spirits from the dead. However, there is no evidence to support this claim, and it remains a mystery whether or not such a person ever existed. One of the most interesting aspects of the story is the character of Samuel. Samuel was a major prophet in the Old Testament, and he played an important role in the history of Israel. To think that he was actually raised from the dead by the Witch of Endor is truly amazing. However, there is some debate as to whether or not Samuel was truly raised from the dead, or whether he simply appeared to Saul in a dream or vision. If he did appear in a dream or vision, then it would not be the first time this happened to Saul. In fact, God himself appeared to Saul on several occasions in the form of a dream or vision. This could explain why Samuel appeared before Saul in this story as well. The story of Saul and the Witch of Endor has had a lasting impact on culture and society. The Witch of Endor herself has become a symbol of those who dabble in the occult and those who seek out forbidden knowledge. The story has also been used to warn people of the dangers of seeking out such knowledge and the consequences that may follow. And that's where we'll end today's episode. What did you guys think about the Witch of Endor? Do you believe that she was a real person who had the power to summon spirits from the dead? Or do you think that the story is simply a myth? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to leave a like rating on this video if you did. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.